Start making the mistakes.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You think, I made a mistake. Fantastic. You should get a tear in your eye that you made a mistake for joy.
Guys, welcome back to the Two Thumbs Up podcast. Dr. Todd here. I got one of my buddies here, Scott Rogers. Scott and I have been to the tops of the mountains together and you know, with all kinds of things and in all kinds of ways. And I've looked forward to having Scott on the podcast now for a number of months. And Scott is a dear friend of mine, dear brother of mine. Has taught me many things. I find him super interesting, wise, and we're going to just have a conversation today. And maybe you just heard a little bit of it. We're going to see where this thing goes. Scott is an artist, and I'm going to let him share a little about his story. But I was reading the bio on the website today, and in October of 1994
is when I went full time.
Was you went full time, and you had your uncle gave you a sculpture.
I bought it.
You bought it. So tell us about that. How did you chose in somehow to start doing this?
I have an uncle. His name is Grant Speed, and he actually lived within a few miles of here in Linden.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he spent probably the last 60 years of his life. His name was Ulysses Grant Speed. And I didn't know it until he died. My mother got up at his funeral and said, I want y'all to know he was not named after a Yankee general. Mm-hmm. He was named after his uncle Ulysses and his uncle Grant. And then his last name was Speed. Mm-hmm. But I always marveled at Uncle Grant's work. He was a world-class sculptor, one of the best that's ever lived. And I always just admired his work. And I told myself in my heart of hearts, as a young child, if I could ever afford one of his pieces, I would buy it.
So you purchased one of his pieces.
And so I was working in the oil and gas industry in the Dallas area, mm-hmm. raising venture capital with my father, and came into some money, and I bought a sculpture. It was a piece called Rough String, and I had it for about 6 months. That first night that I had it, I literally pulled out a sleeping bag and I slept by that mm-hmm. bronze. It was about 3 feet tall, and I just would wake up in the night and turn it in the moonlight, and go back to sleep and wake up and then turn it, I just buzzing. Mm-hmm. Well, I had that piece for 6 months, and the first honest, true, I should say that's the second just pure spiritual experience that I ever had in my life. I came home from work one day from a hard day in oil and gas, hand on briefcase, hand on the doorknob, opened the door to 505 North Church in McKinney, and I looked and I saw that sculpture. And Todd, for the first time in my life, I heard an audible voice out of the ether. And the voice said, I can do that. And that fast, I closed the door and got in my car, and I drove to Westgate Shopping Center in McKinney, Texas, went in and I bought all the clay they had on the shelf. And I came home and I started sculpting that night. There wasn't thinking about it. It was just pure action, bold action. And I've learned that that's vital
mm-hmm.
to take action. And from that time, 4 years later, in October of '94, is when I went full time with my art. Yeah, full time from that point forward.
Yeah, you talk about a trust fall. It's like you have this moment of inspiration, and you just go for it.
Yeah,
and you've done so many beautiful, and I've gone through a number of them on your website. But there's several, there's all of them I love. I mean, I love the Apache, the ones you've done, and I love all the sports memorabilia ones you've done. I love the Last Supper, and I know where that one has sat, and I know where that one is, and that one, there was times when I would just go, it was just me and that sculpture where it's at, and that one I've looked at it enough times where they're alive. The sculpture is alive, and I can hear the voices, and I can feel the energy, and I can feel the love of that environment at the Last Supper.
Yeah.
And your sculpture is, you speak of this gentleman, the Harley guy,
Uh-huh.
but that's one that spoke to me that way. Like, and so if you wouldn't share about that one to start.
That one is amazing because when I started sculpting, shortly into my career, I started sculpting multiple figured pieces, juries, lynch mobs, open casket funerals, got 6 guys carrying somebody to Boot Hill. So I was sculpting multiple figured pieces, multiple figures. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, the ultimate multi-figured piece is the Last Supper.
Yeah.
And so I started sculpting it, and then all of a sudden I realized I don't have enough knowledge to pull this off. And so I stopped, and I waited for about 10 years, and I sculpted another 150 pieces.
Yeah.
And then I attempted it again, and I got into it, and all of a sudden I realized I still don't have enough knowledge to pull this off. And so I gave it about 5 more years, and then I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I go, okay, it's time. I know that it's time. I can pull this off now. My ability has risen to the level where I can do this justice. And so I took out a round piece of wood, a board, and I squished out 13 pieces of clay, little balls for the heads, and I'm just playing musical heads as I'm going around kind of working on them, because I had about a week to kill in Santa Fe before I left for the summer, because I used to sculpt in Santa Fe 4 months a year for 9 years. Okay, that's what really gave me my big start. And so I would sculpt, and people come into the gallery and see me sculpt, and they visit and buy my work,
Yeah.
Well, so I'm working on these heads, and all of a sudden this lady walks in, and she says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm sculpting the heads of the Last Supper. I'm going to create the Last Supper." And and it's almost like I could see the pressure leave her. And she says, "How long are you going to be here?" And I said, "Gallery closes at 6. I'll be here till 6. She says, "I'll be back." She leaves and goes to her hotel room, and she comes back. I didn't actually know where she was going, but I found this out later. She comes back about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, and she's got a bag, like a little gift bag, and she says, "I want to tell you a story." She said, "I'm from Dallas, and about a week ago when we left Dallas, I literally could not leave Dallas until I put this in my suitcase. I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to look at it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I'm going to Santa Fe for green chili and the artwork. I wanted nothing to. I literally got in my car without it, and I couldn't. The power was so strong. I had to go back in the house and get it and put it in my suitcase. Here, it's yours. And I got this bag, and I pulled out this book, and it was a book on the disciples of Christ.
Wow. Very beautiful.
Is this a team effort?
It's a team. Yes, that's exactly.
Is this a team effort? And I could go through so many experiences like that with sculptures where I know that I'm to be sculpting, and that people are led to me that have information, and they're not necessarily artists, but I'm open, and I create an atmosphere with people. I feel energetically that they feel inclined or open to share and give me feedback, and that if I'm not open, that they wouldn't offer that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So as you've kind of been doing it literally 34 years now. Happy anniversary, 34 years.
Thank you.
So, there's all these correlations I see. You've talked about these moments where people, the perfect person shows up, that she gives you this book. There's this team effort happening. So in your life, because of and I love in your bio where you talk about, and I'm going to paraphrase, you talk about how the art is actually you. And so it reminds me of people just doing their life. And what I love to do, and you're an amazing artist, and I love the artistry of creation. And I really, to live one's life as an art form. And you literally live your life as an art form. And but I know too that everyone can do the same thing in their own way.
Whatever field
it is. And maybe it's a silly podcast, or but you've taken all of that on and literally live and put your essence into art. And I love how open you are, and the things that you've learned, and the wisdom you've gained. And what would you say? And there's probably many, many things, but what would you say? How is this process of you step into being the art?
The perfect example just came to me. So I'd been sculpting. I started sculpting October 4th-ish, 1990. And in 1994, May of 94, I got a divorce. And prior to that, so I'd been sculpting about 3.5 years roughly. Mm-hmm. And prior to that, I'm sculpting in a marriage that,
that wasn't working.
It wasn't working.
Right.
And
we were just talking about that, earlier, yes.
And the marriage wasn't working from the very get-go because I did not know how to love myself, or I had lost the love for me. Mm-hmm. I can't put it out on anybody else. I learned that.
Accountably, yes.
Accountable. Mm-hmm. I didn't love myself. And I had so much pain that was ripping through my body that so I had this vision come to me of this sculpture. And visualize a cavalry soldier leading the charge. Dun, 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 dun. And he's got his rifle, and he's the point of the vanguard, right?
Right.
And all of a sudden he is shot, and he's the first one shot, and he pulls on his reins, and that horse starts a somersault, and that man is being ripped right out of the saddle. And so this violent separation between horse and rider, I had to sculpt that. That was the vision that came to me. And I call it As the Battle Rages.
I know that one.
Have you,
yeah,
have you seen that?
It. Mm-hmm.
As the Battle Rages. And so I'm thinking, dear God, I can't sculpt that. Nobody's going to buy that. But that wasn't, I was learning, still learning about this craft of what this was all about. And so I put all that pain of that divorce for the next month. I worked on that piece, and then I cast it into bronze, and I put it in an art show, and it was like, violent. And so I didn't tell anybody. I told nobody this story, not even my parents, nobody. And so I'm at this art show, and this husband and wife come up to me, and I say, Scott, we want to buy that piece, As the Battle Rages. We want to buy that piece. It reminds us of our divorce.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Now what had happened is that was Michael Smith, and I can't remember his wife's name, and he, so they bought the piece, but that was from previous relationships, and they had learned, and then they were now in a loving relationship. Okay. So the art show's going for about 3-4 hours, and about another hour later, here come Bob and Shirley Medeiros from Richardson, Texas. And they come up, and Scott. We want to buy that piece. It reminds us of our divorce. I'm speechless. And they had both been in previous marriages, and they were now in loving. And when that happened, there was something that switched in me that gave me permission to be honest with my work. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That to be okay to have those feelings, that there is a transfer, from my hands, from whatever's going on in me, through me, physically, into the clay, that then transfers into other people. And that's why I didn't really learn this fully, and I'm still grasping it, that the power of fine art can heal. And with each sculpture that I create, there's a part of me that heals.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll do a piece of a very similar theme, 1, 2, sometimes 3 times in a row, and it's like I exhaust that part of me, and then I don't have to revisit it again. That there's something that's transferred into the clay out of me to heal.
Yeah. So what would you say to people that they know they have this within them? They can feel it. But they're hesitant. They're unsure, because what you're describing to me is there's this level of trust in yourself and your creative essence, what comes out, that I feel like.
I know the perfect answer.
Please, that's why I asked the question.
Be willing to be wrong.
Be willing to be wrong. So tell us about that, because yes.
So who wants to buy a passed out drunk with a bottle? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Nobody's going to buy that. I've sculpted 2 of them and have sold over 45 of them. Mm-hmm. You know, because I took a chance. That piece, I sculpted this passed out drunk with a bottle. I've sculpted 2. One's called Not a Sparrow Falls. One's called The Forgotten Man. He's forgotten himself. And the first one, Not a Sparrow Falls, that sat in clay at my studio for 9 years because I didn't want to put it out there because nobody's going to buy it.
Interesting.
But I was courageous enough to sculpt it, and then I finally put it out there, and I think I sold like 30 in 3 months. And it's people who know that pain and are willing to visit that pain of a loved one, of themselves, of a dear friend, people who have died from addictions, you know, that people are okay with people who are honest, or an honest sculpture. And I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I get it. It's like there's inherently something that happens in this existence where there's this deep set need to be right. And you hit on something that's so profound, that the willingness to be wrong is actually a very, very powerful way to live life. Because in the moment I am open to being wrong, everything opens up. All the possibilities are still there because I don't have the answer. And I can see in art that as you go through this process of creation, that you've learned that, my ego stopped me, but I'm willing to be wrong about this. And as you let go of that, there's this creation that happens through trial and error, quote unquote, right? But that's the creative process. That's the learning. That's the wisdom. That's because if you knew everything, you would have still been in the oil and gas industry. But you said, this isn't working for me. I'm open to being wrong about the road I'm going down with my career, and this is speaking to me. Yeah. And then each piece you do, it stayed on the shelf for 9 years.
Yeah.
And then, wait, how am I selling out one more time about that piece that's setting on and look at the beauty as one steps out of. I'm not going to sell out to myself, my inner knowing, my intuition, in tune with me, I see. Like that's there's lessons there for me in my life in creating a business and doing a business and interacting with patients and all of these things. That's why I love the idea that all life is an art form. And as one steps into that space of literally how I walk, how I speak, how I interact with my wife, how I interact with my employees, I can do this in an art form.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to be wrong. And because I'm willing to be wrong, I see all these other possibilities. And so consider that how that is even in relationships with yourself and others. I mean, what have you learned about that as you produce this beautiful art? And I want to jump into, you produce a lot of Western art and your love for that. But how would you say your art has taught you, or you've learned wisdom from, with yourself and in the most beautiful, your relationships? What would you say to that?
The artwork that I've created has allowed me to enter certain circles in society that I never would have dreamed I'd be going to. And it's about relationships. My daughter created something for me that in calligraphy that I have on my wall at the studio. It's not about the business, it's about the relationship.
Uh-huh.
And so, like, my relationship with you allows me to be sitting right here.
Right.
And I don't feel an agenda.
Yeah.
And so when I sculpt a piece, do I have an agenda? Or will I go where that piece leads me? You know?
So share about that for just a moment. Where the piece is leading you.
Right.
Because if you have an agenda, it's about you. But because you're going with the piece, the creative essence, what's the result of that?
There's way better than I ever dreamed of. So I might start off with, let me find an example here, but because I don't have, my mentor, Fritz White, called it the divine concept. Mm. You have the divine concept, and it's the divine flash, whatever that is. And most of the time it's just a feeling. Mm-hmm. And you want to capture that feeling. Now, how do I put that in physical form? And so I start exploring the shapes, the composition, the balance, the design that's going to pull off that feeling to its maximum. And what's fascinating, and it's always a little miracle that happens, and it happens, I'd say, on every piece I do now. I'm working on a sculpture, I'm working on a sculpture, I'm working on a sculpture, and here's the thing is I never know when it's going to happen, but it always does. And I'm working on it, and I'm working on the eyes and the face and the body, and all of a sudden, oh my God, it looked back at me.
It came alive.
The sculpture literally looked back. And right then, I know I've got a good one, and that there was something in me that was transferred through me to that clay, where now the clay is an entity of itself. And when I do that, it's like that healing can pull from me such that I become empty. I am more empty instead of holding on to whatever that was, that it's transferred into the clay, and now it has its own life. And it's fascinating to watch people come into a gallery and then connect with their work.
That feeling.
That feeling.
It's like if you're building a building and there's all these plans and infrastructure and engineering and all these things, you mentioned the feeling you have, and it hit me that in the moment you have that feeling, it's imprinted, meaning you already have the blueprint. The feeling is the blueprint. And so that, because you could rationalize and figure out and measure and, all these things, but
it's not where it's at.
It's not where it's at.
No.
But the feeling is the imprint that says, I'll go with this. And and it seems like for you that what I'm hearing you say is that feeling it transfers into your art. It's like I watch these beautiful pianists and I'm like, where does that come from? And I was like, well, I just feel it. Because, what happens if you were to think about it? Well, I get it doesn't sound very good and my voice is off, or well, what if you just feel it? I'm like, well, that's where it comes from. It's already, it's there, it's flowing, right? I find that fascinating because it correlates so much to our health and the people we see and the communication that we have, our practitioners. It's like, wait, use your intuition, your inner knowing to communicate with somebody, and let that relationship, no matter what, if they're coming here for a specific thing, it's like, well, let's just listen and flow with it and see what's created from this interaction. And so, because the answer is already there, the information is there when you felt it, and then you just start this beautiful creation process.
A couple things that come to me. I remember driving through, I think it was Lubbock, out in the Panhandle one time, and my windows were rolled down, and there was a thunderstorm that was happening out here, and I could hear the thunderstorm even though I was driving. I could hear the thunderstorm. It was close enough, and it was like boom, 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 boom. That's how the thunder, and it was like, oh my, that's music.
Yeah,
that's how
composer.
Beethoven,
yeah, whatever. Yeah,
that's how they get it. And I was listening to AC/DC, one of the Angus Young, and they go into steel mills and listen to the machines pounding, and they
you talk about heavy metal. That's the place to do it.
They get their music from that. One I would love to share with you, and it's one of the most profound things that ever happened to me sculpting. Along these lines, I'm driving to an art show out in California, probably in Arizona, and I'm listening to the radio, and all of a sudden the music comes on from Cher singing Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. You ever heard that song? And I'd heard that song off and on my whole life. That came out when I was a little kid. And I'd heard it off and on my whole life, but I'd heard it here. I didn't hear it here. And all of a sudden, I really got what that song was about. This little girl watching her mother dance for men for money. I was born in the wagon of a traveling show. Mama used to dance for the money they'd throw. And all the men would come around and lay their money down. And I'm sitting there going, really? Dear God. And I started to weep. I couldn't even, I'm 80 miles an hour and I got to pull over because I connected with the pain of this little girl watching her mother do that. And I was just overcome. And I was going with, this is what women have to deal with. Women have to deal with the testosterone of men and all the pain they have to go through dealing with that. Our sexual urges, our whatever, and I just, the pain I felt from the perspective of a woman. And I'd never dreamed that perspective even existed. And all of a sudden, I have to sculpt that.
I was going to say, did that become one of your pieces?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when I learned that whenever something really connects with me emotionally in life, that there's a message from the ethers, God, the universe, that there's a sculpture in that for me to assist me to heal and assist others to heal in this world.
Yeah.
And so I went home and I sculpted that. And it's not on my website. People want to see it, they have to come to my studio. It's still in clay. It's been in clay for at least 15 years up on the shelf. And I have a feeling that I'm going to put it out there.
Yeah.
But it's a woman dancing for money.
What a beautiful message for today.
Yeah.
And probably for history too.
Yeah.
But just I love that you listen and listen from it's interesting to me that we have two ears, but that's not where we listen from. That's not the truth. The truth is my ears only hear if my heart is open.
Is H-E-A-R is the word, I never thought of this until just now. Is the word ear in heart?
Oh yeah, here, yeah. The word here is in the word ear is in heart, H-E-A-R-T.
And art is in heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it's like I feel like as people that may be listening to this, and we talk about it's like whoever listens to this, they're listening, but your wisdom, your experience, and that's why I love to learn and listen, is because it's putting it out there. Yeah. And as you so beautifully share your experience and what you do, there's these truths, literally like listening from here, and then creation happens. Because if you were to sit down and I'm assuming that you have never really created an art piece from here.
Yes,
you did.
I did.
How did it work
out? So it didn't.
It didn't work out.
That's the point.
It didn't work.
Right.
Yeah,
so I remember early in my career, so I'd started sculpting in 1990, and about 93, 94, I thought, I'm just going to sculpt a piece to sell. I want this sucker to sell so I can make money.
Yeah.
And so I sculpted this guy on a horse, and I think in 30 years I've sold 3. It was a dud.
Yeah,
it was a dud. And then you take that, and then I have this idea, okay, I'm going to sculpt this Mandan Indian. Ooh, and this Mandan Indian dancing to call the buffalo from Mother Earth.
Is it the Buffalo Dancer?
Yeah. Well, there's
the one I saw.
It's called Calling the Buffalo.
Calling the Buffalo. I saw
Calling
that
the
one.
Buffalo.
Yes.
And so I sculpted it about this tall, and I sculpted him about this tall. So this one was the first one, and I thought, okay, the Native Americans believed that the buffalo were inside Mother Earth, and so I'm going to sculpt buffalo coming out of the earth that he's dancing on. And I'd never done anything like that. I finished the piece, and it sat in my studio. This is unlike anything I've ever done. Is anybody going to like it? They can think less of me. I ended up taking it to a gallery. We sold 8 in 8 days, and the piece sold out. And come on, Scott, give it up. Give it up, Scott.
Get out of your own way.
Get out of your way.
Yeah. That's amazing. So share with us a little bit. I know you Western art and American Indian art, and I know you're a boy from Texas. But how is that spoken to you? You brought it out, and so I know that's where your heart lies. But tell us how so.
Here's the thing. When I first started sculpting, I had no desire to sculpt anything but the Old West. That's all I wanted to do. That's what Uncle Grant did. That's what I'm going to do. And he was successful at it. That's what I'm going to do. And so I started sculpting, and galleries and collectors, they want to pigeonhole you into, this is who you are, and it's literally crossing a threshold to venture into another subject. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a feeling that the first time I did that, I was sculpting the Old West, and I feel like my very first foray into another subject was kind of tapping into the town folk, where I did 12 Men and a Jury.
I saw that one. Yeah.
Okay, and so that's not cowboy,
right?
But that's Old West.
Old West.
Yeah.
And there was there's a pioneer feeling to some of your pieces of the journey and the journeys west and that kind of energy as well. I've noticed.
Yeah. And
it's
then,
telling a story.
Mm-hmm.
There's this beautiful storyline that I see in your art, and it's flowing. It moves.
Mm-hmm. And then I did starting into from about 1895 to 1935, there was a period of about 40 years where it was just women rodeos, all women, 100%, bucking horses, bulldogging, calf
women
roping.
bulldogging.
Yeah,
oh,
women
wow.
bulldogging.
Good on them.
With football helmets on,
yeah.
leather football helmets on. And
they were always the wise ones.
They were wise. Yeah. One of my favorite women that was, I believe she was, her name was Diamond Lil, and she had diamonds put in her teeth. And when times got lean, she would have them taken out and hawk them. And then times got flush, she'd go get them and put them back in.
You don't need a purse. You got to,
drill holes drilled in your teeth.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I did several sculptures of women, just all women in rodeos. And so kind of venturing away from the Old West. And then I ventured into sports.
Yeah, tell us about something, because I know you did was it the Four Horsemen?
No.
Did there was one though I've just seen it recently. And I saw you, tell us about the football one. There's four, what's the name of that one? I can't remember.
Football circa 1890.
1890, yeah.
So what I did is I just love football. I grew up playing football, ate, drank, and slept football. And then I thought, okay, I can do sports teams. And so I started researching out sports from pre-1900 west of the Mississippi, And so that's kind of been my theme, is pre-1900 west of the Mississippi. Juries, town folk, sports. I did a baseball team. It's one of my best pieces. Nolan Ryan has one.
He bought one?
Chip Gaines has one, which led to my doing a commission for him and Joanna of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig.
Oh, wow. He's a big sports fan.
He's a big sports fan. He played for Baylor.
Yeah, Baylor University, yeah. They're yeah.
But so what I do is I go back in history, because I'm a history buff, and so my passion is just studying history. And as I'm studying history, then these nuggets come out. Like I find out that Lewis and Clark played a form of baseball with the Nez Perce Indians on their way to the Pacific Ocean. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that Geronimo played baseball, And so I go, okay, and then so I did a baseball sculpture of a team. And so it was just a natural to do a football team. And it was so fun. It was so fun. And so I did 11 people in a football team. And that ended up turning into a monumental piece that I did for a football stadium out in Ohio.
Didn't you drove that out?
I didn't drive it out. I flew out for the dedication. So it went out on a semi truck. It was about 5,000 pounds, about 8 feet tall, 12 feet wide.
So where would you say, where do you see yourself going from here? You've done all these beautiful things, and I can see definitely it's moving, it's transitioning, new things are, where do you see yourself going?
That's a great question, and I'm starting to feel an answer, and I've been feeling this for about 5 or 6 months now, because what happened is why I started sculpting is not the same reason that I was sculpting 10 years in, 20 years in, 30 years in. the reason that I sculpt has changed.
Mm-hmm.
A big one that I discovered the first time I started sculpting, it was because I was just passionate and I loved it. And then I started to tune in that it's doing these pieces of art assists me to heal, that I'm healing with every piece. And so I started getting into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to explore other subjects and have the courage, because it takes a lot of courage to cross a threshold to do something different. And now people can't pigeonhole me because I've been unpigeonholed for so long.
Well,
people don't know what I'm going to do.
If they know who you are, you're unpigeonholable.
I'm unpigeonholable. Okay. And so here's what's kind of cool is as I've healed, it's like I'm not interested in a lot of these subjects anymore. I'm not interested. And as I've done that, commissions from other people come into my life. And so I'm probably selling as many monuments now and commissions than I am my work smaller. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
look at the expandability of your art.
Yeah.
And you're taking all of that, and there's this it appears to me that it's expanding, and I would love to have you obviously come back and share sometime also about how's it moving, how's it changing, and because you're in this space of like, oh, what's next?
Yeah.
What are you seeing now?
It's really interesting because for 30 years, it's like if I don't sell anything, I don't make anything.
Right.
If my work doesn't sell, what are we going to do?
And what does that do to the creative process if there's that energy behind it?
It makes me anxious, but I don't look at it as a bad thing at all.
It's a motivator?
It's a motivator. Yeah, it's a motivator. I've never followed the economy. I don't care whether the stock market's up or down. That makes nothing to me. I've never paid attention to it. What I do is head down, hiney up. I'm creating the finest piece of work that you're you may not buy my work, but you want it.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget at night when 9/11 happened, I was staying with some friends in Santa Fe, New Mexico, that back when I was starving to death, this is 94, went full time, borrowed $10,000 from Dad. Here you go, son, make it work.
Good old Dad.
Good old Dad.
Yeah.
And so I go out to Santa Fe and just scraping and no money, and everything's going into castings, getting inventory. And I call somebody at church, would somebody in the ward rent me a room? Somebody in church rent me a room. Well, I get a phone call about a week later, and these people are going out of town for 3 months when I'm going to be in Santa Fe. Would you just water our plants? We don't want anything from you. Just water our plants. Make sure they don't die. And that relationship turned into, I probably lived in their home a total of 8 years since 1994.
Yeah.
That, and they're just dear to my heart. And the lady just passed away about 8 months ago. They're going to get one of my sculptures for her headstone. But why I was telling you that is I was in their home and 9/11 happened. And I'm just literally can't even hardly move. My briefcase, just standing there looking at 9/11. And and I watched it for like at least 2 hours, maybe 3. It's about noon, Do I even go into the gallery?
Yeah.
And I went into the gallery, and we had possibly the greatest selling day of my artwork in my life up to that point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That people, I've learned want that when it hits the fan, you know, what's really important in my life?
They connect with art. You know, when things, it's, you know, when, I mean, I know in my life when things are hitting the fan, I go to music or poetry. You know, I write poetry. It's like it's grounding. Even, you know, they're looking to your art as a, it feels like a foundation, something to grab onto again, to trust, to feel. You know,
that gets into something kind of cool, because as a sculptor, I'm in the gallery, I'm at an art show, and I'll see people come into the art show or into the gallery, and I know that they are going to cross a lot of people, and I know the ones, you can feel them. Not the billionaires, you know, they can buy everything 10 times over.
Right.
Money doesn't mean what it means to the person. It's like the lady who the widow's mite.
Widow's mite, yeah.
And so as an artist, you talk about, there's a part of me that just wants to give everything I have away. You know, you like it, it's yours. But and I've actually done that. But when somebody comes in and I know that they are crossing a threshold to own that piece of art, financially, their husband doesn't want them to, nobody in their family likes it, what are people going to think? They're going to cross some threshold. I've got too much, I have too much art, you know, but when they buy that first piece, you know, their life changes, because I'll see them cross that threshold. And I crossed the threshold when I bought my first piece of art. I spent $10,000, my first piece of art. Most people don't. They'll spend 500, 300, 200,
15 or whatever,
whatever, you know. And so I've always been proud of myself that I was a collector before I was a sculptor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I got divorced, I sold that in an auction. And so I had to cross a threshold to let it go as well. And at that auction in Dallas on Lovers and Inwood at Texas Art Gallery, I saw my piece auctioned off. There it went. And then this man turned to me and he says, "Are you Scott Rogers?" I says, "Yeah." And he says, "There's a gallery in Santa Fe looking for an in-house sculptor." And he said, "They wanted me to be that person, but I can't do it. I've got a business and family here, and I was single." And he says, "You might check them out." And that started my career in Santa Fe since 1994. I've had my work in Santa Fe, and just sold a piece 2 days ago again. I mean, I think since 1994, there's been 1 month I haven't sold in Santa Fe.
I love it.
Because I went to that gallery, or I went to that auction to see my piece auctioned off.
To flow it out.
Yep. And then right there, here comes that. It's fascinating.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Can't make sense.
I love it. And I see all these correlations. And if you were to say, you know, and I'm not a big, it's not advice, but if you were to tell people, they have this inner knowing, this inclination to do whatever. It might be sculpting. It might be music. It might be dance. It might be start their own business. It may be, you know, what would you say is one of a primary foundational principle that you use to say, I'm in?
Take the first step. First step. You want to dance, go to the phone book, go to the internet, find the phone number. Which one are you attracted to? Call it, you know, pick up the phone. I'd like to sign up for dance lessons. How much are dance lessons? And it doesn't matter how much they are. I want to learn how to dance.
Yeah.
What kind of dance? Country, ballroom,
and
take the step.
And people that are interested in sculpting, I know you teach. Do you still teach?
I'm really not what you'd consider a teacher. I teach about once every 3 years.
Yeah.
for 5 days.
Yeah.
This last June.
And it's probably more advanced
I
practitioner
prefer that.
artists. Yeah.
I'm not for beginner.
Yeah.
Beginner.
If someone is interested in sculpting, where's a good place to start?
There's so much information on the internet.
YouTube.
Yeah. Just see, when I started sculpting, Dad had an old bookcase, or I had a bookcase out in my garage. So I went and got this bookcase. Okay, because that's what I'm going to sculpt on. It was a book.
That was your table.
That was my table.
Yeah.
And then I got to go buy clay. Well, I went and bought the clay first. And then, well, how am I going to support this thing? Well, I'd seen in a book that my uncle, you put a flange down and a pipe, and then you get wire. Okay, well, I went to the hardware store and I bought a flange and a pipe and a T-fitting and wire. Okay, I went and got hanger wire. I got plenty of hanger wire, which is the worst wire in the world to use. But my first 2 or 3 pieces, that's what I had.
So you're going to go for it.
I didn't know that there was such thing as aluminum wire, which is the best. And so I just fought that. And I'm going to use the word mistakes here. You start making the mistakes.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You think, I made a mistake. Fantastic. You should get a tear in your eye that you made a mistake for joy. That's how you learn, because then you're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
And so you start. People get wrapped up in fear where they don't fear freezes them. And
it's interesting to me because after I got out of medical school, everyone thinks you should know everything.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna just go for it.
Yeah.
Just gonna go for it no matter what, Yeah. And so, Scotty, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us.
It's fun.
You're Scott. He's one of my dear buddies. I trust him. I love what he creates. Tell what's your website? ScottRogersSculpting.com.
It's my name, ScottRogersSculpture.com.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful work. I'm anxious to kind of see where you go. I mean, you're in shift right now. It sounds like a little bit with some of the things you're doing, but it's inspiring to me. You've inspired me for years. I find you wise, and I love your perspectives. And I love all the things you share and how it literally correlates into so many aspects of life. Everything from relationships with oneself to relationships with others to physical, emotional, and spiritual health to the go for itness of what you do. And so I've like I said, I've wanted to have him on the show for a while and love to do it again sometime. But thank you for your time. I know you come from Logan, and but I'm super grateful for who you are, for how you show up in life. You've inspired me with your work and how you just did it, how you just do it. I think, well, could I just stop one day and say I'm tired of going to clinics and doing this? I'm gonna start being a painter or whatever. It's like, whoa. Now that takes courage.